Welcome everyone to oldtacosandgeeks.com. Pinfall Rewind. Justin here, back with another episode. This is episode 2. Now, my friends, originally episode 2, I was going to focus on the Game Boy and Game Gear years of wrestling games. I will get to them, but after playing the NES games, I needed to play games that were at least a little bit more better in gameplay. It was driving me nuts actually playing King in a Ring and Steel Cage Challenge and things of that nature for the Game Gear and Game Boy, respectively. I will get to that episode, so you will see it eventually down the line. But today, this time for episode 2, I want to focus on some arcade wrestling games that were out there back in the early 90s during the arcade games. So we are not going to focus on every single arcade game. I'm going to only focus on 3 this time for this particular episode. And I am going to be focusing on, of course, the greatest wrestling arcade game of all time, WWF WrestleFest. We have WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, and of course, WWF Royal Rumble. And I'm actually not going to start with the best for last. I'm actually going to kick that off first, just respectfully. I'm going to try to keep it with the years. So this came out in 1991. So we are going to be talking about WrestleFest, and it was released in 1991 by Technos Japan. WWF WrestleFest is an arcade wrestling game that built upon the foundation set by WWF Superstars, which came out in 1989, with its vibrant graphics, larger-than-life characters, and addictive gameplay. And yes, it is addictive. WrestleFest quickly became a fan favorite in the arcades worldwide. It captured the spirit of the then World Wrestling Federation, the WWF, and remains one of the most beloved wrestling games of all time. It's definitely in my top 5, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about the history of WrestleFest. So, Techno Japan, best known for their work on Double Dragon, developed WWF WrestleFest as a sequel to WWF Superstars. The experience with beat 'em up mechanics translated well into the arcade wrestling gaming space, giving WrestleFest a brawler-like feel while retaining the sport's fundamental aspects. The game was published by Technos in Japan and North America, and Tecmo handling distribution in some regions. Running on the same arcade hardware as their other hit titles, WrestleFest showcased the significant graphical and gameplay improvements over its predecessor, WWF Superstars. And speaking of gameplay, let's talk a little bit about it. So it features 2 primary game modes. You have Saturday night's main event tag team mode, where players select a tag team and work their way through a series of matches to earn a shot at the WWF Tag Team Championships held by the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal. And then, of course, you have the Royal Rumble mode, which was a chaotic, over the top battle royal where players competed to eliminate opponents by throwing them over the top rope until one remained. And the gameplay was simple, engaging. You have 4 buttons. You have grapple, used to initiate holds and moves, punch, which is a basic strike, kick, another strike, and run, which allow players to run off the ropes for attacks. The game utilized a button mashing mechanic for grapples, where the player who pressed faster won the exchange and executed a move. Wrestlers had unique move sets, finishers, and taunts, adding to the authenticity. The ability to perform double team moves in tag team matches and interactive ring elements like bouncing off the ropes made the game truly stand out for its time. And as far as the graphics go, that is one of the most notable aspects of WWF WrestleFest was its bright, colorful graphics. The large, cartoonish character sprites had exaggerated proportions that fit the bombastic nature of professional wrestling. The wrestlers were easily recognizable, featuring detailed attires, facial expressions, and even signature poses. The animation was smooth and impressive details such as sweat flying off of wrestlers and a powerful move and unique wind poses for each character. The game's sound design also played a key role in immersing players in the WWF atmosphere. Digitized voice clips, crowd reactions, and really did good to add to that arcade hardware, really adding more of authenticity. Commentary was very minimal, but the action-packed sound effects made up for it. And if you want to know what the roster was, you had Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man Randy Savage, Big Boss Man, Jake the Snake Roberts, Ted DiBiase, Sergeant Slaughter, Earthquake, Mr. Perfect, and of course you had the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal. But unfortunately, they were non-playable characters in regular matches, but final bosses in the tag team mode. And the inclusion of the Legion of Doom as the final challenge in the tag team mode really made the game feel like they were this unbeatable force. And if you were a kid in the 90s and you were a wrestling fan in the early 90s, you lost a lot of quarters in this game. And I mean a lot, especially in the Royal Rumble because you get tossed out. That was it. But even if the tag team, and I'll talk about that when I play the game for you guys momentarily. And despite never receiving a console port at its time, WrestleFest became one of the most fondly remembered wrestling games of the 1990s. Its impact on the wrestling genre was profound, inspiring later WWF WWE games. I mean, it inspired that arcade style wrestling, that fast paced pick up and play mechanics can be seen in later titles such as WrestleMania the arcade game, which is in this episode. Then you had a spiritual successor, which wasn't really that great, that came out in 2012 by THQ for mobile devices. It's a fairly modern remake featuring an updated roster, but it really didn't capture the magic of it. But overall, folks, to wrap it up before we get to my gameplay section where I play the game, because here at Pinfall Rewind, I always play the games. WrestleFest remains an iconic entry in wrestling gaming history. Its simple but effective gameplay, stunning arcade visuals, and authentic WWF presentation made it a must-play experience in the early 90s. Even today, it holds a special place in my heart and the hearts of wrestling fans everywhere as an arcade enthusiast, proving that great gameplay and presentation do stand the test of time. And with that being said, my friends, it is time to play the all-time classic, WrestleFest. Let's get to it. All right, we're gonna go do tag team since you guys seen my clips of the Royal Rumble. So I'm gonna be Ted DiBiase and Mr. Perfect since I just won the Rumble with the Ultimate Warrior. And you're gonna see the Saturday night main event WrestleFest tag team elements here. So we are gonna get into this. All right, the intros are in, and let's get in it right now. DiBiase with the backbreaker on the Hulkster, brother. DiBiase now. Oh, Hogan with the Irish whip. And a back body drop by the Hulkster. Now, this is what I was talking about when it comes to the gameplay, how fluid it is. You have various, unlike the games that we did for the first episode with the NES games, there is a whole lot more detail in this. You have wrestlers with signature moves, such as the pile driver. You have, of course, everyone has their finisher in this. And Jake the Snake just got tagged in. I'm gonna tag in Mr. Perfect, and let's kick this off. Perfect has his perfect drop kick, as you see here. So they really did a good job of really making you feel individually wise. Each wrestler has their quirks, and I thought just for the time, just even the graphics here, the aesthetics, all of this was just super amazing. And remember when I was talking about how this game will eat your quarters, especially the tag team mode? The reason is that it's like, if you look at the bottom of the screen, I have 0 credit. So every time you get hit, or if you feel like you're dying, you just buy in, or you'll press the start button depending on how much quarters you enter to refill your health bar there. And this is where you will lose a lot of quarters. Not only at the time, not only was the time of playing this back in the early 90s, the game was just super hard for us little kids back in the days, but the fact that the difficulty spike just went up as you just kept going, and you just had to keep inserting coin at the coin at the coin at the coin. You lost a lot of quarters in this. And DiBiase, what a backbreaker on Earthquake here. Right hands here by DiBiase, but Earthquake with a counter, and Earthquake with hands of his own. Tie up here by Earthquake, and a power slam by Earthquake. Earthquake taunting here. Earthquake in control, but DiBiase with a suplex here. And he's dazed as Earthquake. And look out, tie up here by Earthquake with another body slam. He's got to get the Warrior in. In comes the Ultimate Warrior here. And a backbreaker once again by DiBiase. How can a tag team? Look out, Gorilla Press Slam! And a Warrior now in control here. Pile Driver. See, that's what it says. Insert coin. Oh, Cairo about DiBiase here. Perfect is ready and willing to get in this ring. DiBiase has to get over there, but the Warrior's not allowing it here. Snap there, but and here comes Earthquake once again. DiBiase's got to get to Mr. Perfect, and he does, folks. Tie up here by Perfect. Drop kick here. But, like I said, also have it, like I said, for episode 1, I constantly will broadcast. It's the UWL ME. And by the way, you should check out our playlist. UWL, by the way, for my WWE 2K fans out there, we have our own shameless plug I'm doing right now, our own universe mode that we do every week, and we're about to be finishing up the season finale, but back to WrestleFest. But you can see how fun this game is, and I wish, like, if you live in a state, or hell, if you are even, because we have our demographics is everywhere. So if you are in a place where they have those old school arcade games, and if you're one of the lucky people that has like a barcade, like us in New York, we have barcades here. If they have the WrestleFest machine, I would highly suggest you play. It is, you'll see why it's still to this day in my top 5 of greatest wrestling games ever made. And spoiler alert, at the end of this Pinfall Rewind series, I will be naming my top 10 greatest wrestling games of all time. So stay tuned for that for our series finale. But Mr. Perfect with the perfect plex, that's gotta do it here. And oh, damn that damn Earthquake. But I love WrestleFest. It is one of the best games ever made. I truly enjoy this, folks. I can't praise this game enough, just from the graphics, the fact that the fans are there. We have a ref here. It is just gorgeous to look at, folks. I can't stress how great this is, but we are actually going to continue because we have 2 more arcade games that we have to talk about. So I'm going to wrap up this match here, try to put the hurtings to Earthquake here with these knees and stomps, and then we're going to talk about WrestleMania, the arcade game. You're going to see how different, if you've never seen it, how different this game was compared to WrestleFest and the other games on this list, and we want it. So let's get into WrestleMania, the arcade game. Released in 1995 by Midway and acclaimed, WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game was a unique entry into the world of wrestling video games. Unlike the more simulation-oriented titles of the time, this game embraced the fast-paced, over-the-top action that Midway was known for. Taking inspiration from Mortal Kombat, featuring digitized sprites, exaggerated moves, and an arcade-style combo system, the game became a cult classic among wrestling and arcade fans alike. Midway was the company behind iconic games such as Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam, was at the height of its arcade dominance when it partnered with the World Wrestling Federation, now known as the WWE. At the time, wrestling games were largely developed as slow, methodical simulations, replicating real-life wrestling matches with grappling mechanics. However, Midway approached the project differently, bringing in their signature arcade gameplay style that was known for fast action, simple controls, and spectacular visuals. The game was originally designed as a coin-op arcade title before being ported to home consoles by Acclaim. The digitized graphics, which has been seen as a hallmark of Mortal Kombat, were used to capture the likenesses of real WWF superstars, making them instantly recognizable. Wrestlers were filmed performing moves, which were then digitized and animated in a way that exaggerated their actions for maximum effect. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. Now, as stated, unlike traditional wrestling games, WWF WrestleMania the arcade game focused heavily on fighting game mechanics. Each wrestler had a set of basic attacks, special moves, and combos that can be chained together. The game eliminated the standard grappling system found in wrestling titles, opting instead for a more straightforward attack-based system, making it feel more like a fighting game than an actual wrestling sim. Each wrestler had unique moves that fit their characters' personas but were exaggerated for entertainment value. Let me give you an example. The Undertaker could summon ghosts and use supernatural attacks. Bam Bam Bigelow will set opponents on fire. Doink the Clown had a giant mallet to attack, and boy was Doink the most annoying person to fight in this game besides Yokozuna. Shawn Michaels and Razor had rapid strike combos. The game was fast paced with a heavy emphasis on quick reactions, juggling opponents in the air and executing flashy over the top moves instead of traditional health bars. The game had a damage system where wrestlers could drop objects like wrenches and bones when hit, emphasizing the game's cartoonish nature. The game included two main modes. You have one-on-one mode, a standard arcade style progression where players fought their way through the WWF roster, and tag team mode, a gauntlet style challenge where players had to defeat multiple wrestlers in succession, similar to the endurance style matches in Mortal Kombat. Now let's talk a little bit about the graphics. So one of the standout features of WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, was its visual style. The use of digitized actors gave the game a realistic look, similar to Mortal Kombat, making wrestlers appear lifelike. The animation was fluid and exaggerated, with special effects such as glowing hands, flaming fists, and explosive impact adding to the spectacle. The sound design was also impressive for the time. The game featured voice clips from the wrestlers and an energetic play-by-play commentary from Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler, and an upbeat soundtrack that fits the arcade action. The commentary, while repetitive, added that real authentic WWF atmosphere experience. So, in short, WWF WrestleMania arcade game was a divisive title among wrestling fans. While some embraced its fast-paced, chaotic nature, others were disappointed that it lacked traditional wrestling mechanics like grappling, submissions, and pinning systems. However, the game found an audience among arcade fans and those who appreciate the fighting game influences. The game's success led to the release of WWF In Your House in 1996 for the PlayStation 1, which followed the same formula but added more wrestlers and interactive environments. However, In Your House did not achieve the same level of popularity. That's why I'm not going to be covering In Your House. I might do it if enough people want me to cover In Your House in a future episode. Despite its unique approach, WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, remains a cult favorite. It demonstrated that wrestling games could experiment with different genres, and its influences can be seen later on in the arcade style titles like WWE All Stars. Now, without further ado, my friends, I've talked enough. Let's get into, once again, you know how we do here on Pinfall Rewind. Let's do a match. Let's play WrestleMania, the arcade. All right, here we go, folks. It's going to be Razor Ramon versus Doink the Clown. And this, you guys, trust me, you're going to see why I say Doink is so annoying to play and face against, because he cheeses with that damn mallet, as you just see here. But you can see what I'm talking about when it came to the graphic. This is still, it's graphically, the Mortal Kombat type of approach with the sprites still hold up in 2025. Still stands the test of time. And this was another one of those arcade games where you just lost a whole bunch of quarters, because the game is not easy, especially when you're facing someone like Doink or Yokozuna, because Doink will spam with the buzzer, that mallet, especially if you had the combos right. You had a lot of wars with your friends playing this game. They will definitely tell you. Actually, and if you're a part of the younger generation, ask your folks, ask your uncles, ask your aunties, ask your grandpas, whoever were able to play this game. They will tell you of the brutality that it took in the arcades, how much quarters we lost in this game. And there's that damn mallet, folks. It's Doink, man. Come on, Razor. Come on, come on. Oh, come on. Damn. All right, Doink. Second fall to you. Now I gotta go in. Let's go, Razor. I gotta remember these combos. Oh, reversed it. All right, there we go. Oh, he blocked it though. Now it all comes back to you. Here we go. Oh, reversed it. Reversal. And it plays just like like how you would expect a fighting game. You have your combination, you have your various special moves. In Your House later will have actual fatalities, or their version of a fatality. And it was actually pretty decent. And I won this one. Alright. Let's see who is next. So here's the thing. This is the Intercontinental title route, and then eventually this is where the game became impossible in the arcades. I to this day still don't know any friend that beat this game in the arcades because of things like this, where you had to have that handicap match and you had to focus on both men at the same time. And if you were going for the WWF title at that time, eventually you had to fight 3 people at a time. This was just literally designed at this point to kill your quarters. Because look at this, look at the cheese. And this is the one thing I want to say with this game is that the difficulty spike is so bad. Like you go from that one-on-one where it's just manageable to this handicap match where you really gotta be on your P's and Q's with it. This was not easy at all, folks. I can't tell you how much I got my ass handed to me with this. It was brutal, and I'm trying to survive here against Bam Bam, but no avail, folks. But let us actually end this with WrestleMania arcade game. We're gonna conclude this portion of the episode, and we're gonna head to our final game, folks. We are gonna talk about WWE Royal Rumble. Let's get to it. The WWF Royal Rumble video game is a unique entry in the history of professional wrestling games, primarily due to its arcade roots and ambitious attempt at bringing an over-the-top multiplayer experience to home consoles. Released in the year 2000 for arcades and later ported to the Sega Dreamcast, WWF Royal Rumble was developed by Ukes, the studio behind many WWE games in the late 90s and early 2000s. While it didn't offer the same depth of the SmackDown series or the simulation style of No Mercy, its fast paced, chaotic gameplay stood out in the era where wrestling games were undergoing this rapid evolution. So during the late 90s and early 2000s, WWF, now WWE, was riding high on the success of the legendary Attitude Era. Video games based off the WWF license were being released across various platforms, and different developers were handling multiple titles simultaneously. WWF Royal Rumble was developed by Ukes and published by Sega, primary for the arcade systems before being ported to the Sega Dreamcast. The arcade versions ran on the Sega Naomi hardware, the same technology that powered the Dreamcast, which made for a relatively smooth transition to bring it to the home consoles. Unlike other WWF titles at the time, Royal Rumble was specifically designed with an arcade experience in mind. This meant that it was a more emphasis on fast action, quick matches, and an easy to pick up and play control scheme. The game wasn't aiming to be a deep simulation, but rather a chaotic, action packed multiplayer brawler. Now, let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. The game was structured around 2 primary modes: Royal Rumble and Exhibition Mode. The main attraction of the game, of course, was the Royal Rumble, where up to 9 wrestlers could be on screen at once, which it was a rarity at the time. Players had to eliminate opponents by throwing them over the top rope, while new wrestlers consistently entered the ring. The arcade version supported up to 4 players, while the Dreamcast version only allowed 2 players to play at a time. And I can't tell you, and my friends Keenan, my brother Jason, and of course Dez will attest to this, how excited we were when we heard that this game was coming out for the Dreamcast and that this game had 9 people at a time in the Royal Rumble. You have to remember, we were just coming off of games like SmackDown 2, No Mercy, where usually where the Royal Rumble was only 4 people at a time. The fact that we got 9 at this time on a home console, it was for us revolutionary. It was never done, and I really want to do down the line a big Dreamcast video, because Dreamcast does not get, and Sega does not get the flowers that it deserves for a lot of the innovations that they really introduced into the gaming space. And let me get back into the Royal Rumble now. But we also had Exhibition Mode, which was a more one-on-one or a tag team style through lacking it did lack variety, depth of wrestling games from the era. Now, we will talk about the gameplay, and there is huge issues with the Royal Rumble match. But key gameplay mechanic was the super meter, which built up over time, allowed players to unleash their special moves once full. The feature encouraged aggressive gameplay and kept matches exciting. However, the gameplay itself was relatively simplistic with basic grapples, strikes, and Irish whips making most of the offensive actions. One of the defining aspects of WWF Royal Rumble was its chaotic nature. Unlike the more methodical WWF SmackDown series on No Mercy, where storylines and season mode played a huge role, Royal Rumble was all about that arcade style mayhem, delivering high energy and short bursts. Now, let's talk a little bit about the graphics, the presentation. So, for its time, and I'm going to emphasize on this, for its time, WWF Royal Rumble was visually impressive. Keep in mind, Dreamcast at this particular time was king of the graphics because this time was 64, the PlayStation 1. Dreamcast was king at this particular point before, of course, PlayStation 2 rolled out and vice versa. The game featured large, detailed character models that closely resembled their real life counterparts thanks to the Naomi hardware. The game's graphics were cleaner and sharper than those seen in the PlayStation SmackDown series. Character animations were exaggerated to enhance the arcade feel, and signature moves were visually satisfying. The arenas well rendered, featuring Titantrons, entrance ramps, and crowd animations that added to the atmosphere. The game was not without its limitations, unfortunately, particularly in its roster. Due to the hardware constraints of the arcade and Dreamcast, WWF Royal Rumble had a smaller roster than any other WWF games of that time, with only 21 playable characters. Yes, folks, we had a Royal Rumble game where they have 30 wrestlers in a Royal Rumble and you only had 21 wrestlers. What did that mean? Well, I'm going to not give you a quick spoiler because I will be playing a Royal Rumble match for this gameplay segment. What that means, folks, is that if you throw a wrestler out, so if I threw out Jeff Hardy will come back as long as there's a quota to be filled with wrestlers. So, yeah, that made this really bad. The audio design featured classic WWF entrance themes, crowd reactions, and that's pretty much it. But it lacked full voice commentary. So, upon release, WWF Royal Rumble received mixed to positive reviews. Critics praised the fast-paced action, impressive graphics, and fun multiplayer experience, but criticized its lack of depth, limited roster, and absence of additional match types. The arcade version fared better because its fast pickup play nature felt well in the coin op setting. With 4 player support, it provided a fun, more chaotic multiplayer experience that was ideal for arcade games. However, the game was somewhat short lived in the arcade scene due to the dwindling popularity of wrestling arcade games in favor of home console experiences. So, without further ado, my friends, it is time to play WWF Royal Rumble. All right, we are going to do the Royal Rumble like I said I was going to do. I'm going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin for this gameplay. And let's see if we can survive all 30 men here. And Stone Cold kicking it off, Edge, Mankind, and Matt Hardy. If you're wondering why the hell are we starting off with 4 people in the beginning of this Royal Rumble, keep in mind that the whole design was for 4 people to play at once with the on the arcade system. So 4 people would enter the quarters, and then you kick off the Royal Rumble right there. And to eliminate them was fairly easy. Just toss them over the top rope, do a couple of stomps, and that's pretty much it. But keep in mind, due to the limitations of the hardware, you're going to see wrestlers who I eliminated come right back out and try to win the Royal Rumble again. Very annoying part of that, and that is just one of the worst. But you get to see how the ring fills quickly. Oh, over the top rope goes Jeff Hardy. Austin just eliminated Jeff Hardy, and here comes Al Snow. And that, for me, like I said, at this particular time, this was revolutionary for us to have the ring feel like this, to be as big as it is. This was huge for a lot of the kids back in the days because I remember me and my brother used to write letters to the developers giving them ideas of what we wanted to see in our next wrestling game. I don't, unfortunately, we don't have the letters anymore. But my brother, once he watches this video, he'll comment and tell you the story. But yeah, we used to write letters. Me, Jason, Keenan, Dez. We used to all have these ideas for developers, and now that we're in the era of the 2K25, things that we wanted as kids are now here, like the fighting in the crowd, the backstage area, just to see the progression of the wrestling era and the wrestling games is just, I can't imagine. This is why I'm doing Pinfall Rewind, because I want to show the younger audience and those who might not be familiar with the wrestling games of the past where we came from. We came from those NES days. We came from games like the Royal Rumble, which wasn't that great, but it had that innovation of having 9 people at a time in the ring. And yeah, the ring might look way bigger than it should be, but damn it, we still had fun with this game. And man, this is one of those Dreamcast games that it's a guilty pleasure. It really is. It's not. It really, to me, I think it's a terrible wrestling game, but it's a guilty pleasure. And oh, Mankind also might be eliminated here. And Godfather, there's no pin here. Mankind. Oh, goodness, and D'Lo and Austin here. Oh, back suplex reversed by Mankind. This is just chaotic, just trying to call us here. And once again, Matt Hardy. You see, Matt Hardy was eliminated earlier, but he's back again. And they actually have a timer here, by the way. I forgot to mention that. That timer, if that time runs out, you lose. So in the arcade game, that was just ways for you to keep entering your quarters. So like you know, we complain about microtransactions and the nickel and diamond, but arcades use the nickel and diamonds as well. Let's be honest. DDT by Austin there. And yeah, overall graphically, it was fine. For an arcade game, it wasn't bad. For a wrestling game, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. The fact that it was limited max types, and they had a steel cage in here, but the steel cage, when you're doing the exhibition mode or the one-on-one mode, whatever they called it, you teleport for some reason. Like the steel cage will teleport to the ring, and then you can have a steel cage match that way. It's the weirdest freaking thing. It really was. But overall, folks, we're gonna wrap this up for Pinfall Rewind. This is episode 2, the arcade games of wrestling games. And Justin from tacosandgeeks.com. If you like what we do here, hopefully we earned your subscription. If we did, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell. Helps out the channel tremendously, my friend. Peace, love, and happiness to you all. This has been episode 2 of Pinfall Rewind. Stay tuned, because episode 3, we are going to go a little bit with Acclaim and look at the games of Acclaim from wrestling games from ECW, Attitude Era, and those flying edge days with Royal Rumble and WWF Raw. A lot of games next time for episode 3, so stay tuned. Later days, my friends. Peace, love, and happiness. I'll see you soon.